And I really encourage everyone to listen to this. I actually reveal some things that I've never talked about publicly. And I just, for whatever reason, I felt safe and comfortable with you guys. And I was so fucking relaxed in Mexico. I just said a bunch of shit. It was just, wow. I still can't believe I said some of it, but I did. So you should go listen to it.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We always strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy and positive approach to non-monogamy.
However, everyone approaches this a little different, and at its core, our show is about hearing and learning from the different experiences and approaches people have. With that in mind, it's important to remember that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of our own.
It's also important to remember that we aren't doctors or therapists and that we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on this show.
One final thing that we need to let you know about is that this podcast will hopefully include some explicit language. So, if that kind of thing offends you, we suggest you just keep listening until it no longer does. However, if you're under the age of 18, you should probably stop listening or gather up your parents and listen as a family. Enjoy.
Ready?
I'm always ready. I'm always waiting on you.
Welcome to episode 41. We're Finn and Emma. Today we have a fun, amazing interview with Tristan Taormino.
The one and only Tristan Taormino.
Yeah, and the clip you heard at the beginning was actually not from this show. It was from last Friday on the 21st of December. We were on her show, Sex Out Loud. And so if after you listen to this, go and listen to that. We talk a little bit about ourselves, and she asked us some good questions. So it was a fun, awesome interview to do with her.
Yeah, so wanted to say thank you to her for coming on our show, but also for having us on hers. We had a hoot and howler and good time.
Yes, exactly.
Also, if you're listening to this when it comes out, which you should be, it is a couple of things. It's Boxing Day.
Woohoo!
It's the day after Christmas. And it's Emma's birthday.
Yay!
And she has no clue, but I commissioned a special birthday performance for her.
Oh, no.
So we're going to listen to the birthday song, and then we'll be right back.
Birthday kisses just for you. There's so much that we could do. Emma, come and play with us tonight. It's hard when you're so far away, when all we wanna do is play. Emma, come and stay with us tonight. Birthday candles and some cake we'd have to buy, 'cause we don't bake. Emma, have a lovely time tonight.
So, what do you think?
Finn just shared that clip with me. I had not heard it before, and it was amazing.
And it almost feels like Mr. H and Mrs. H want you to go and live with them and replace me. It almost feels like that.
Oh, I don't think so. They're awesome. Thank you so much for that. That was incredible.
So anybody who's not familiar, that is Mr. H of the Bed Hoppers podcast. So they're good friends of ours. And I asked him to write a song for Emma, and that's what I got.
Aww,
so thank you to him.
That was so sweet. And that made my day.
And it was free.
Good present. Good present.
Quick note on the Bed Hoppers. We actually yesterday, again, if you're listening to this in real time.
Yes, on December 25th.
We recorded a almost 2-hour episode of bloopers and
funny stories,
mishaps that the four of us have had, not necessarily together, but just collectively over the last however many years we've been doing this. So for us, it's almost a decade of stupid shit that's happened to us or because of us.
Yes. So go listen to that. It's on the Bed Hoppers channel.
So, yeah. Next thing on the list is a real quick thing we wanted to mention. Going into the end of the year and coming into the new year, we just wanted to say thank you to everybody for everything this year. We've had a great time. We've got lots of amazing stuff coming in 2019.
Woohoo!
And we just wanted to quickly touch real quick on the little resources we share. You can call them sponsors if you want, but really they're resources that we use and love, and we will continue to share these types of things with you as long as we can provide some benefit to the listeners, whether it's saving a little bit of money or a free trial or something useful.
And only things that we use and actually really believe in, too.
Yep. So the first one being our favorite place to meet other sexy people.
Don't do that again.
Okay. I was feeling the song and...
Leave the singing to Mr. H.
Yeah. It's probably a good idea.
No offense, I love
so
you,
but...
So
how many months free do people get if they use the links on our website?
6 months free!
Oh, on Cassidy.
See, we should leave the singing to Mr. H.
Yeah, that's very true. So yeah, 6 free months of a premium membership on Cassidy where you get all the features. Go and try it out. Get on there. The more people we get on there, the more of us there are to have good times.
Yeah.
The other one that we like to mention is a website called stdcheck.com.
You can also find the link to that on our website.
Yep, and so the awesome thing about that is it's one of the easiest ways that we've ever found to go and get tested for STIs. You basically make a little profile online. You go to one of the thousands of blood labs all over the U.S., usually in the same day if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Give them some blood and pee,
mm-hmm.
and then they give you some results like a day later. So go do that. You save $10 every time you use the link. And we got some exciting news coming on them next year, early in the year.
Yes.
We're just hashing out some deets.
Exactly.
I won't say deets again.
No. You're saying a lot of stuff that I don't know if...
Yeah, so tell them where our website is, and then let's go to the episode with Tristan.
Yeah, so you can find us at our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, or under the
hashtag.
Under the screen name.
Noob.
NNM podcast on Cassidy or Twitter. Also, we recorded this episode while we were at Desire with Tristan. So
one quick thing on that. There is a little bit of background noise. I edited most of it out, but there was some stuff like the guy drilling, apparently drilling concrete for a bit. And the cleaning lady came in and out a few times. So
there was some maintenance going on around us.
However, it is not a hindrance to your listening enjoyment. So just pretend you're there with us.
Yes.
Looking at the ocean.
Yes. And we'll post a picture of where we were at on Twitter too.
Will we? We will. Okay.
We will.
Let's go listen to what Tristan has to say, what things she divulges that she didn't think she was ever going to.
Yay, let's go.
So live on tape.
Woohoo.
From the Desire Balcony.
Yes.
With Tristan Taormino. Thank you for taking time out of your busy week to talk with us.
I'm just taking time out of having sex with someone. What do you mean?
They're just waiting for you, like...
I don't know if they're waiting for me, but by the time it gets to this point, don't you feel like you want to cram all of it in? So I'm just like, fuck the activities. Who cares about the bourbon tasting? Like, I have people that I really want to...
Yes.
You know.
We definitely didn't ever experience that.
No. It's Friday afternoon, or Friday morning, I guess.
Friday morning.
It's not afternoon yet. Our last full day here.
Yes.
And for listeners who can't see where we're at right now, we're on a balcony, one building behind the ocean view, but we have a side ocean view, and it's beautiful. Sunny, gorgeous day.
The water's beautiful, blue.
Yes.
So anyway, now that we've...
I just had to set the scene.
You have to set the scene. Oh, and we're all naked.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt, right?
Or are we?
Or are we?
Yeah, you'll never know.
You'll never know.
So in the spirit of things, do you mind introducing yourself briefly for anyone who doesn't know who Tristan Taormino is?
Yeah.
And how you wound up to be at Desire this week?
Okay. Oh my gosh. I am a writer, a sex educator, a filmmaker, an activist, and I host my own podcast. which you're familiar with, called Sex Out Loud. I wrote a book. Probably my two most well-known books are The Ultimate Guide to Anal Sex for Women and Opening Up, A Guide to Creating and Sustaining Open Relationships. So Opening Up kind of joined the canon of open relationship books, and lots of people seem to like it. And
it's only been mentioned on every episode of our podcast since the beginning of time. So.
I met the swing setters, at another event many, many years ago, and we hit it off right away. And when Cooper said, hey, do you want to come to this event and like teach some classes and be a service stop and all these things, I was like, I don't know what to expect, but of course I'm like game to try anything once. And then last year, I just had the time of my life. I mean, wow, this place is magical and special and amazing.
And so one would infer that by having written a book, you are experienced in the art of polyamory and probably anal sex for women as well. But since our podcast isn't normalizing anal sex for women, do you mind talking about your transition to the polyamory side, or has it always been something?
I mean, I feel like as a young person, I was pretty sexually curious. I fooled around with girls and boys. I was going to start at the certain place, and then like an image flashed into my head, which I had forgotten, which was that like I did have a foursome in high school. And it was one of those things where it was kind of accidental. I had a boyfriend who didn't live in the same town that I did, and I had a best friend, Aaron, who I was in love with, but I didn't know that at the time. Adam brought his friend John, and Aaron's parents were away for the weekend. And it was like that thing where you're like super grown up, right? You're like cooking meals. You're 16, but you're like cooking meals and like raiding the liquor cabinet, and like you have the house to yourself. I mean, it's pretty
fancy dinner for high school, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pasta for sure. So, and Adam and I were having sex at that point, and there was going to be a question of like, will Aaron hook up with John? And then we all ended up in the shower together, naked. I don't know who suggested that or why or how. And I'm sure there was like some gin and tonics and you know what I mean? Like a little like,
lubrication.
And I remember thinking, this isn't actually that strange, right? This feels comfortable. Like I trust these people. I love them. Like this feels really comfortable. It feels really fun. Yeah. And so at the time, I was mostly dating guys, but I had this really intense romantic friendship with my friend Aaron. And actually, when I came out later in college to high school friends, they were like, were you and Aaron together? And I said, well, no. I mean, well, there was a couple, but not really. And they said, because like when you stopped being friends, like everyone was just like, Tristan and Aaron broke up. I didn't know any of this, but the perception even then was like, that's not a typical friendship. Like there's something else going on there, but I wasn't like seeing it at the time. So fast forward to college where I'm still very sexually curious. I mean, at that point, I just felt like I'm at college. I have all the things to do and all the people to do.
And you can rebrand yourself, right? No one there knows who you are.
Right, exactly.
Who you were, right?
So I just felt like I was kind of like a free spirit. And I would date people, but it would be casual. And then I came out as bi. I slept with a few women. And then I met my what would be my first serious girlfriend. I won't name her because she's famous now. So I met my first serious girlfriend, and she was like the hottest dyke on campus. And of course, she was dating this ostensibly straight girl. Like all the queers knew each other, and so they were like, "Who's that?"
Right? They didn't fit in that mold, right?
Right, because they all knew each other, and they knew who was queer and who wasn't. And all of a sudden, they're like, "Who's this Tristan girl?" And she was a senior, and I was a sophomore. And she had a very specific plan. She was from the East Coast. She was from Boston, and I was from New York. But she was like, I am like day one after graduation going to LA. I want to be a film writer. That's where it's happening. Like, I'm going. She's very, focused. And so I was like, okay, but I'm like still a sophomore. Like, what should we do? And so we sat down and she was like, well, I think we should have an open relationship. Now, she was only 2 years older than me, but she really was a kind of like mentor figure to me. Like, I always joke, we're still friends. I always joke that like I did so many things for the very first time with her, right? Like first sex toy, first role play, first bondage, first fisting, first strap on, first dirty talk. Like,
oh my gosh. Like,
yeah, it was like, because she was incredibly sexually open, and there was a sense of a long, long menu with no judgment about what's on it, or, so it's like, it's Thursday. What do you want to try?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, just try this. If you don't like it, don't do it again.
Right. And she was kinky. And so of course at that point, like I didn't know anyone that was kinky. And so, and she read On Our Backs magazine, and she was very sex positive, and it just opened this whole world to me. I think it's really something to have a lover who is totally shame-free, right? Yeah. They model that for you, and you can't help but just sink right into it, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like she was the epitome of the campsite rule, right? Like, leaving you much better than she found you.
Yes, so yeah.
Like, she didn't push you to these places and then destroy you and walk away, right?
No, I feel like she was so pivotal in my sort of own sexual evolution. And so we decided to have this open relationship, and then I would go see her in LA a bunch of times. And at first, like, nothing was happening, and then she began seeing someone, and I began seeing someone, and it was like a super hot mess. Was
it jealousy
and being so far away, and also I sort of knew how hard she loved, right? So I felt like, oh, she's not just going to like turn that shit off, right?
Right.
And so, and we just didn't have any skills. I'm like 20 and she's like 22, and shit got weird and messy and sad, and it did not work. But, when you think like, when you're there, you think like, no, I can do this. And she had sort of opened my eyes about all this like sex outside the conventional box. And so, of course, when she said like, let's have an open relationship, that seemed like, oh, right. Like we're doing all these things that are not straight or not, Right. So like, of course we could like explore some kind of relationship that's not the regular relationship.
And she didn't have experience in that either then, right?
No.
She was just something she wanted to...
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the distance, like we wanted to stay together, but we knew it was also sort of not realistic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it went on for 2 years, and it was like there was like a crash and burn at the end. Sad face.
But 2 years is a pretty long time to sustain something like that, especially having no framework to...
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No guidelines in place.
Yeah. And then... like simultaneous to this, the person that I was seeing who went to a different school, after we broke up, I found out like 6 or 7 months later that one of my best friends had been secretly seeing her, and that there was a little bit of overlap. And they were completely on the down low about it. And because we didn't go to the same school, there was like no sort of gossip to be had.
Yeah.
Right.
And that felt devastating for me at the time.
That they didn't share that with you.
Yeah, it just felt, and also it just felt like a betrayal, and it felt like I'm so close to you, and I was so close to this person, and now you're so close to each other, and it felt awful to me. Yeah, I feel like I didn't quite like ever recover from that. It just felt awful. I think the not telling me, and then also the idea that like I had been really close with someone.
Yeah.
And then these two were really close to each other, pushed my buttons in a really intense way.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
that makes complete sense.
And again, we're like, I'm still in my early 20s.
Right. Yeah.
So like,
a lot of new things.
The drama's real.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So now so I'm trying to like now track where was I? What was I doing?
So you ended the relationship that was long distance, that was open.
Right.
And then moved away from those people completely, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So by the time I graduated college, I had a girlfriend. Okay, it's all coming back to me now. I had a girlfriend, and again, I was going to move to New York. She was going to still be in Connecticut. She went to a different school, but she was going to still be in Connecticut. And so there was going to be another long distance opportunity, right? And, oh no, that's not right. Oh my God, Tristan, your origin story, get it together. I moved to San Francisco. Okay, no, right. So I was recruited for a job right out of college. I was supposed to go to law school. I got rejected from every law school I applied to because I had very average LSAT scores, but otherwise very smart. And so I got recruited for this job in San Francisco, and it was working for like a women-owned and run political consulting firm in San Francisco.
Wow.
And like when you're a baby dyke, like could you have hit the jackpot anymore?
No, that sounds amazing.
No, right? You're like, I'm going to the Mecca.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to like work with this feminist organization. It's going to be amazing. Of course, it was not amazing on so many levels. But so I lived in San Francisco for 6 months. So again, now we're back on distance, right?
Yes.
With that girlfriend.
Yeah, because she stayed on the East Coast.
She stayed on the East Coast, and I was on the West Coast. And so I saw a bunch of different people in San Francisco. And, you know, in San Francisco, in the queer community, that was sort of a default.
Yeah.
Right?
So you had arranged with your girlfriend back home back at the East Coast that you had.
We both could do
for
things.
open
Yeah.
relationship. Yes.
But I feel like I had more opportunity because I'm like in San Francisco.
Well, and now you were a professional. You did it the one time.
Yeah.
Right.
You've graduated.
Right.
And I'm so, after you said the first time kind of crash and burn, I'm surprised that you were like, okay, let's try this again. Like the East Coast, West Coast, long distance.
I know. But it only seemed like fair.
Yeah. And maybe it felt kind of natural.
Yeah.
Well, now it was your turn to head west into
Right. Exactly.
to the new frontier, right?
Right.
It's interesting because you would think, you would be scared of giving that a try again because it didn't work last time. But.
Yeah. But I don't know. In the moment, like it seemed like the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I lived in San Francisco for only 6 months, in which San Francisco attempted to destroy me slowly in a series of just like horrible things going, like every possible thing, bad thing that could happen to you, like happened to me. Right.
Oh.
So it was really intense. And then my father got sick and I moved back to the East Coast to be with him. He was diagnosed with AIDS and it was 1994. And they assumed once he had been diagnosed that he'd been positive for probably 10 or 15 years.
Wow.
Because he had no T cells and he was so far along.
Oh. That's
So
awful.
I moved back to the East Coast and I feel like I just concentrated on my dad. He only lived for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So I moved to Maine at one point and I was kind of concentrated on that. And then I moved back to Brooklyn, or to New York, which was like sort of the first plan, and then things got sort of sidetracked, and then I moved back to Brooklyn. I feel like I was single for a while, and then I did have a girlfriend I was monogamous with. She had bright orange hair.
I love that that's the thing you choose.
Like I can picture her. Yeah. She just had bright orange hair. And so I feel like I made my foray sort of back into non-monogamy maybe several years later. I felt like I just wanted to like play the field. You know what I mean? Like I'm in Brooklyn and there's like a hot guy who goes to my dog park and there's like this sexy butch girl who hangs out at Meow Mix, which was the dyke bar on the Lower East Side at the time. Meow Mix.
I love that name.
And so I felt like I felt like I just want to explore. I don't want to be exclusive with anyone. I don't even really want to date anyone. I just kind of want to be like around. Right. And then I got into a triad. So I went to an activist event at the Statue of Liberty, and Annie Sprinkle was running it, and we were all supposed to dress like sailors or mermaids. And there were these two butches dressed as sailors, and I was with like a bunch of my femme friends, and we were all just like swooning.
And what were you dressed as?
And I was dressed sort of, there's probably just a lot of glitter.
Okay.
Glitter. And so we were super swooning. They were super hot. And then I found out they were together. I was like, oh, they're together. And they're like, they're together, but, you know. So I got invited to a party that they were at. We flirted, and then they were like, hey, do you want to play with us? And I was like, oh, that would be fun. And so one of them was the dom, one of them was the sub, and then they would co-top me, right? So then they would both dom me. And it started out kind of casual, right? Like a play relationship. And then we would see each other more frequently. And it was just a good vibe. They were both older than I was. And then the top of the hierarchy, call her V, started dating someone, right? Which was within the bounds of it, right? Yeah. And in fact, the middle hierarchy, right? So there's like top, and then there's like switch, and then there's me. The switch had a daddy in San Francisco, very long term, like 5 years, who she would go and see, and who was like a pre-existing part of her life. So everyone seemed to be having a sort of a full life there. And then the top of the hierarchy fell in love with someone who wanted to be monogamous.
Ooh.
So up until that, it was almost you were starting to see your first working models of.
Yes. Where like I both came into a thing, and then that person had a thing, and then as we got going, a new person came in. So I started to kind of see like how it all went.
Works in a more functional way.
Yeah, because they were experienced, and also I felt kind of immediately like I liked the people that everyone was dating, and it felt natural, and
Right.
So I'm curious, we've had some questions that have come in, and actually this is also kind of a question that I've had, is there's some people who think that because oftentimes you see polyamorous relationships, like it'll start with two people and then a third adds, and then one of the three drops off, and then somebody comes in, and people look at that and say, well, it can never work. There's always relationships ending. But I guess what we've sort of come to is like, that doesn't mean it's not working. That's sort of how it works. Is people grow and change, and they move in and out, and just because three people don't get together and stay together until they all die at the same time,
right,
doesn't mean
it wasn't a success.
It didn't work.
And actually, this is really funny, because V was V and R. V was R's top, and then V and R topped me. So actually, when V left, we were the two on the lower rung, and at some point we were like, do we want to... You know what I mean? Yeah. Like all of a sudden the dynamic shifted pretty dramatically.
Right.
So it's like we were a little bit like at some point, should we just like call it a day? Yeah. Or is there something here that we could sort of explore? It's a totally different dynamic, right? So that was so it felt very conscious. It didn't feel like one person left and so the two people kept going. It actually, there was a point where we were like, was it the magic of three? And are we meant to now all go our separate ways? Or do we want to see if this is a thing?
Yeah.
Right? Because it was never a one-on-one. I mean, you have one-on-one, but you know what I mean? Yeah. It never started that way. So it was a little bit like, oh, now what? So I felt like we consciously...
The dynamic had shifted.
Yes. So then we consciously said, okay, let's figure this out. And I remember, so it was probably 9 months into this that we went on our first one-on-one date. I remember we went ice skating at the pier, and it was like, oh, right. So what is this? Right. What's this?
So because your third one she left the relationship completely because
she'd fallen in love and wanted to be monogamous. And so it was like it wasn't an automatic. One leaves and the other two just carry on. It was actually quite a shift.
But it wasn't a failure. It's not. You wouldn't look and say, well, she left, so that we just failed.
No.
Right? Like everybody was.
No. Things morph and change, and it's a fluid process.
And actually, what's very, very funny is among all of them, the person that I'm the closest friends with is the monogamous girlfriend who technically broke the triad.
Yoko.
Isn't that funny? So now I'm with R, right? And R is kinky. R has a lot of play partners.
So she was the switch.
R is my dominant. R has a daddy in San Francisco. Long-standing relationship. Quite intense. And there was a sense that, well, first of all, this preceded me. So there was no sense that I really was going to come in and be like, hey, you got to like clear the slate now because I'm here. Right. It was clear to me that they had a long-standing relationship. It was very connected. It was very intense. So I don't know that I ever thought, oh, I want you all to myself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it also felt, well, for one thing, that person was her dominant, she was my dominant, right? So it felt like a different world, right? And she was just a sort of major player in the queer kink scene in New York. So she was constantly playing with other people. We would play with other people. It's sort of like the way we started, right? Is like the way we went.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got myself a boy. I got myself a submissive. So then I began to explore my switchy side, right? So there's like she has a daddy, she's my dom, I have a sub. You know, there was like multiple layers there. Yeah, layers.
Wow.
And I think also with kinkiness, there's something about like having these very specific roles that you feel like you know where you fit in and you feel special, you know, because you have this particular thing, right? It's like, she has a daddy. She's not my daddy. I have a dominant, right? Then I have a submissive who's my boy. She has a submissive who's a girl. Like it feels like because the roles are really distinct and formalized in kink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you think that makes it easier then? Because you can look at it and say, well, I don't know of a good analogy, but like I'm going to order like an ice cream sundae, right? And you're the banana and you're the ice cream and you're the chocolate syrup. And then when the chocolate syrup leaves, we get more chocolate syrup. And so, but if like a lot of times people are like, it's a husband and wife, and then there's a third woman comes in and they're not in a kinky relationship. So you almost have two women filling the space of what used to be one woman. Have you seen that is actually easier on the kink side because of those roles being defined?
Yeah, because, and I learned this from doing so many interviews for my book. I feel like when you ask people what they really, really want, many of them say, I want to feel special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not, I want to be the only one.
Right.
Not the only one. I want to feel special.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's an innate human.
Want, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And so, to me, having this particular role made you feel special, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, I know where I am, and I know that like we have this particular dynamic, and you have a different dynamic, and these dynamics are named, right? So it seems very clear. Like you have a different dynamic with this person, different dynamic with this person, different, and we kind of have our own thing, right? And even if at one point R had another submissive, that submissive was a boy, that submissive was like a sex pig in the grandest, most honorific way I can use it. We were very different. Right. We were very different. And so that also didn't feel like, oh my God, that's a threat to my relationship. It just felt like, oh, that's a whole different thing that like, I'm not.
Have you explored non-monogamy since then without all of the defined roles of the kink world, or have most of yours been in the kink capacity?
No, I have. When I was with R, we got into an accidental quad.
It happens.
I was going to save this story for my memoir, but I'll give you the short version. We became very close with a couple, a trans guy and a femme, and we started to kind of do everything together. And because we were already they weren't necessarily that kinky. We were very kinky. Eventually, people began to play, right? So I played with the femme, and then R played with the trans guy, but also we began to develop this kind of family-like relationship, where we're all sleeping over at one person's house. Yeah. We're all having meals together, and we didn't openly negotiate it. It just sort of happened. Yeah. Right? And then we were sitting around the table one day, and I was like, wait, we're doing something here. We're, maybe we could just say it out loud. We're doing something here. And actually, in that case, the only person I hadn't had sex with was the trans guy, and I ended up developing really strong feelings for him, and was not letting R know, because it was very clear, like, they're primaries and we are primaries.
Yeah.
And then when I did, like, we split, the two couples split almost immediately and stayed together, the original couples.
Yeah.
But yeah, that didn't go well. I mean, I think mostly it wasn't that I had developed these really strong feelings. It was like, why didn't you clue me into this, like, on the way?
Right.
You know?
Do you think had you done that, it would have ended differently, or it would have gone differently?
I don't know. The feelings felt really intense, and they also felt like they sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, they didn't come out of nowhere. We spent all of our time together, right?
Yeah.
But it did feel, it almost felt a little scary. My feelings for that person almost felt a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different.
You know? Yeah.
So
my accidental quad.
was your main foray into polyamory outside of kink?
Kink. I mean, that felt outside of kink because they weren't that kinky.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then I'm trying to sort of think, and then there was just like another phase of kind of like solo, you know, I'm just playing the field.
Yeah.
And then that's the other thing is, like, you know, so then my marriage, I was with someone for 15 years and that ended 2 years ago. And I feel like that because it was so long, it sort of, we almost practiced like every kind of style.
So
Right.
that was different than R. That was
This is a new person.
Okay.
See, they're all not public people, so I respect their privacy.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and so R and I are still together. R has a daddy. R has a boy. R's living a full life. And I have a boy who is also, now I'm on the East Coast. The boy's on the West Coast. And so there's about a year overlap, right? And then R began dating a woman, and it was much more romantic than kind of all the other things going on. And my relationship with my boy became much more romantic. And so then we split.
Okay.
And interestingly, R is still with that woman
Oh, really?
who she sort of fell in love with,
Yeah.
like, and while we were still,
Yeah.
you know. So then we split, but of course, and also when I had a boy, the boy had a primary. Right. Okay. So there's like a lot of balls in the air, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, and I felt very clear that, like, I needed to respect the primary and also be like, we're having a specific dominant submissive relationship that didn't start out romantic, right? It started out very much like, we're doing this role play, and it's not like a boyfriend girlfriend thing. Eventually, the boy broke up with his primary. And I guess at that point, am I still together with R? I don't know. Also, when I was together with R and the boy, we all played together, which is like another thing too, right? Like, are you keeping these things separate? Like, I had never met or played with or done anything with R's daddy, right? That was a very separate relationship. But when I had a boy, like, the three of us would play together.
Yeah.
And so then I'm in this 15-year relationship, and it began as non-monogamous, right? I had a primary, he had a primary. So so there's sort of no question, like, this, we're going to keep doing this. Like, we happen to have now morphed and changed from what it was. Now it's a different thing, but we're still open to other stuff, right?
So you had met someone else and then had that boy still, or did that boy become your...
No, my boy became my primary.
Primary, okay.
Eventually, yeah.
And became your husband.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we got married. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like for a while we were kind of practicing partnered non-monogamy. He had moved to the East Coast to be with me, and we sort of had to sit down where this was a huge change for him. He was a California boy, and New York is a hard place to navigate. And so we basically said, okay, for the next 6 months, we're not going to pursue other people or be involved with other people. Like, you need to settle in. You've moved all the way across the country for me. Like, let's just focus.
Yeah.
Let's just focus.
Yeah.
Make you feel like safe and secure and settled, because you're sort of coming into my life, right?
And I think that's just a side note, I think that is an important thing to recognize in some like relationships, that when you need that, when you need to focus on one
like regroup.
Yes. Yes. And I think some people are maybe scared to admit they want to do that or need to do that. And I think it's important. I just wanted to note that.
So shortly thereafter, we began running this queer, it didn't start out queer, but like kinky, sex positive, swinger, poly event that happened at a campground. It was totally immersive. And so in those years, there was just a lot of opportunity to play with other people, both kinky and just sexually, right? So I feel like we practiced a kind of partnered non-monogamy where we were primaries. We weren't looking to sort of date or romance anyone else, but there was a lot of play with other people, right?
And so in all of this, did you ever use the term like swinger or swinging, or were you always sort of just going down like, this is just a thing we do and we don't really put a name on it?
Right. I mean, I probably identified more as polyamorous, but I mean, my connection with the swinger community has always been strange, right? Because early on, I was invited to the swinger event Naughty in New Orleans, right? And this is like, I mean, I feel like this is like 15 years ago now. And my boy and I went, and I was going to teach classes, like hands-on classes. And when we got there, like, we felt super alienated. Like, we were definitely the only queer people. We were kinky, and it felt really heteronormative. And it was like a little bit like, whoa, right? And then slowly we began to find these people, right, who would be like, oh, you guys are kinky? Well, we're really interested in kink, but like that's not this scene, so we really haven't explored it, right? And then I remember this couple we met where the husband was like, I'm interested in trans women. And that was like a secret that you whispered, right?
Yeah.
Within swinger circles. So we began to find the kind of like offbeat people in the swinger community. And then two friends of ours who we knew really well from the kink community did identify as swingers, and they ended up coming to the event, right? And so then we were like, oh great, like they're a straight couple and now we can like swing. We did like a full swap. We're like, let's do that, like a full swap in the hotel room, like, you know, the whole swing experience. Because we were there and why not? And so we did that, and certainly I went to other swing events. I just felt like I went in thinking like swingers are challenging this like huge institution of monogamy, right? They are really fucking with it. So of course we have like a ton in common.
Right.
And then finding that wasn't true. Finding that like some swingers are really conservative and some swingers are really heteronormative and have a very narrow definition of sex and have very narrow definitions of gender. And that caught me off guard because I tended to think like, no, these are our comrades. They're like doing it in a slightly different way, but this is like, we're all comrades here.
Right.
Yeah. Have you started to see that shift since
obviously
the 15 years ago that you
obviously
whatever how many
and then I can remember going to swing clubs, and there's a place called New Horizons in Seattle. It's not there anymore, but it was a really special, amazing place. And so I would go, and at that point I felt comfortable enough that even though I'm like the only queer person here, like I'm just going to do my thing.
Right.
And then just also, I would be traveling out of town and someone would say, hey, you have to see our swingers club or come with us. And so I inevitably was in swinger spaces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sort of found my people there.
Yeah.
And it's really when I met the folks from the swing set that I was like, oh my God, there's a revolution happening. Wait, what? There's bisexuality. The guys are bi-curious. Like, you guys are into pegging. You guys have sex toys. You don't all just have like heterosexual intercourse. Like, wait a second. This is not what I've seen up till now.
Yeah.
And so it made me rethink the whole thing. And that they were saying, we do have relationships, but we identify as swingers.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's not just recreational or social for us, which can be for some swingers.
Right.
But we do have relationships. We do have things that look like polyamory or ethical non-monogamy, but we strongly identify as swingers.
Right. revolutionary, right?
Well, that was when it was like, okay, now I see where I always thought that, I always thought there was like so much overlap. Now I see the overlap, and it feels like it's getting bigger.
Right.
That's exciting. I mean, I'm glad you're seeing that. There needs to be more of that.
And then when I tell people, I it's so funny because I tell people I'm going to this event and they're all just like, what? And most of my friends know about last year, so they know why I'm back.
Yeah.
But someone said to me right before I left, a queer person was like, but what is it really like to hang out with so many straight people? And I was like, they're not straight. It's just not.
Right.
You think I'm going to like a fraternity reunion, a fraternity sorority dance.
Yeah.
It's not that at all.
Yeah.
So I don't feel alienated in any way.
Yeah.
In any way.
And I would say too that the straight people don't feel alienated either, or forced, or like, because I identify as mostly straight, or I am straight, but I don't mind interaction. Like if I touch another guy, I don't freak out.
Right, or see two guys do something.
Yeah, like it doesn't bother me, but at the same time, like I have seen very little non-straight things happening, and I don't know that I just haven't seen them, or I just haven't. And it's
You haven't been in the right places.
I haven't been. Like, but it's not. I don't feel like anybody here feels alienated one way or another.
And that's what I hope this environment.
Maybe I just don't notice it anymore because I'm so like, I don't even.
Right. Yeah, in some way, all the different people, and there isn't a sort of cookie cutter swinger here. It does become like normalized, so you're like, you don't notice anymore, right? Unless you were sort of dropped in probably a more traditional swinger.
Yeah.
But the idea that there are these progressive swingers, it's not just a younger generation, right? We've got a good age range here.
Me too.
And I just feel like there's just much more fluidity in terms of gender for both men and women. So I feel like, first of all, there's multiple gender presentations for women who identify as straight or bi here.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that's really amazing and important to see that women don't feel like they have to be in this box of like sort of like bikinis and stripper heels, which I love bikinis. I love stripper heels,
but you don't have to wear them.
No. And then there are men here who I feel like are not subscribing to sort of traditional ideas of masculinity in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
So I do feel like the gender variety here is something, I talked about this last year on my podcast. I think we assume there's incredible gender variety within queer communities, right? And we see that and we have names for it and, right? And we dismiss that there could be that same amount of gender variety among male-female couples.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But it's here and you see it loud and clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we've met people where I guess like you'll meet the guy and the woman and the couple, and then you'll be like, oh, I think there's maybe maybe he's not fully straight or she's not fully, and then you find out later like, oh yeah, we're both straight or we're both, and you're just like, okay, I don't know what to think anymore.
Right. Oh yeah. No.
So I just stopped thinking about it.
You can't read people here at all. Yeah. No.
You have to have that conversation.
Oh my God. Yeah. No. You can't judge a book by its cover like at all. And there are some people here who I read as very traditionally straight and swinger, and then they open their mouths, and I'm like, oh, wait, what?
Yep.
Yeah, it forces you here, especially, like, you have to have that conversation with people because you can't just assume anything.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Well, that's why we like it.
Yeah.
That's why we keep coming back.
So I guess, do you mind talking a little bit about your transition to your current partner? If do you think he's okay with that?
Yeah, I think he's okay with that. So when he and I met, I was still in my marriage, and he was also married, and everyone was non-monogamous. And there was a bit of a rough start because we became interested in each other, and he sat down with his partner and I sat down with my partner, and we were all going to sit down together. And my ex would one day would be like, I'm totally into this. I think this is good. Yeah, let's do this. And then days later would be like, full stop, no, veto, done.
Huh.
And so there was a lot of push pull, you go forward and then the gate closes and then the gate swings open. So there's a lot of discomfort on the part of my ex. And so actually my current partner and I didn't actually get together until my marriage ended. But he was a point of like sort of contention and back and forth. There's a lot of back and forth for quite some time. And the way that what set in motion my divorce was way before this person that I'm now involved with, which is that I violated a non-monogamy agreement.
Okay.
And over 15 years, has that happened before? Yes. I mean, we're all human, and like I wrote the book, but like I'm not an expert.
Yeah, you're still human. Yeah, you're still human.
And so when it happened, I told him right away. And so we'd been through this before. We'd been down kind of every road you can imagine going down.
Non-monogamy,
yeah. And so it's not like there hadn't been violation of agreements, right? And so I told him right away, and I truly thought like I fucked up and I need to like make amends, and this is like a one-time thing, and I'm not pursuing this person, I'm not involved with this person, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
he just sort of lost his mind.
Wow.
And we were in counseling for a year before we actually broke up.
Wow.
And monogamy and non-monogamy were definitely central to those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. He felt very caught off guard.
Wow.
Very caught off guard.
Yeah.
He hadn't experienced that intense emotion in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he felt caught off guard that I violated an agreement. He was just sort of like, why don't you just call me? We were apart. And I felt very caught up in a situation where it was like unfolding organically and I had no intent, but all of a sudden it was like, what am I feeling? And do I want to act on those feelings? And so I felt very sort of caught up in something that I was like, okay, I have to deal with this later. And it felt very in the moment for me. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that my marriage ended because I violated an agreement.
Well, and first, I think thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
And two,
thanks for sharing that you are human. I think.
Yeah.
Background noise.
That's a drill.
That is a drill.
Yeah. It's funny here in Paradise. There's always a lot of noise.
Yes.
and even a professional non-monogamous can still makes mistakes, and that hopefully gives people the space to say, we're just starting this, or we've been doing it for a year or two, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to have speed bumps, and we're going to have hiccups. But I guess, how have you learned over the years, like, ways to navigate those and I know it's different for everybody, but like, have you seen some key themes and maybe things that have changed since you wrote the book on it that you've learned since then? That you're like, I would say, if I was going to give you some advice, this was what I would say.
Well, I think that for me, this is a really important piece. So for me, when my partner would come to me, because we would have a kind of like a check-in, right? Not like prior notice or whatever you want to call it, right? Right. We'd have a check-in. So it's like, hey, I'm interested in playing with this person, or hey, I want to do something with that. And so we always had like prior notification. And what I would do is I wanted to be a yes always. Right?
Yes.
And so he would come to me and I would be like, before he's like finished the sentence, I'm like, yes. Because in my higher self and in my brain, like, I want him to experience all there is to experience in the world.
Right.
And I want him to be able to do what he wants.
Yes. Right.
And I want all that for him, right?
And that's what you want for your partner, someone you care about. So
I would yes it before even having a beat. And then that could sometimes go wrong. Because I wouldn't, like, I would, because then something would go and I'd be like, oh, that made me feel uncomfortable, or we didn't talk about that piece, or now I do feel jealous when I didn't think I was going to feel jealous. And so I just learned to kind of like take a beat. Whereas that, like, if you come to me, like, give me a minute, and it could be a minute, it could be an hour, it could be a day, it could be a week, depending on the situation, obviously. But let me sit with it for a second and like come to yes fully informed.
Yes.
Or maybe I'm going to come to know, or maybe, right?
Right.
But like actually work it all out in my head and then say yes.
Yes.
Right.
I feel like I jumped to yes, and that was a downfall for me.
Right.
Right? Because then all these other things would come up after, but he would be like, you said yeah. Like it was a yes.
Yeah.
I was like, right. And then I didn't think about this, or I didn't think about this, I didn't think about this. Now it's pushing my buttons. So jumping to yes before I'm a yes.
Yeah.
Big time.
Even if you want to be a yes.
Yeah. I want to be a yes to so many things, right? And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
I've experienced that.
yeah.
Multiple times.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's the other thing is like, I really do feel like, I mean, since I wrote the book, I've been studying Buddhism. I really believe in radical acceptance. And so I really do feel like this piece of being where you are is really important. There's where you want to be. Oh, we all want to be.
Yeah.
This. But where are you right now?
Yeah.
Right.
Are you feeling insecure? Like, is there something off?
And that's okay.
Do you not have enough acknowledgement? Like, where are you right now? And like accepting where you are,
Right.
and not trying to sort of like push past or ignore where you actually are. Like, are you a raving jealous lunatic right now? Right? And just be able to say that.
Yeah.
I also think, people tell me all the time, like, so you don't get jealous. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I'm such a jealous person, right? You don't have to eradicate jealousy, right? There are moments when I can experience intense compersion, and that feels amazing. But certainly I can also feel jealousy, right?
Right.
So just like really checking in with yourself and saying, not what it's not like the wish, it's the reality. It's the reality of how I feel right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also sometimes too pushing, like you want to accept where you're at, but also you want to grow too and beyond that. So finding that balance of accepting where I am, but also accepting that maybe I don't want to be here forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also the space of like, that's giving me some kind of feeling, but that's tolerable, and I'm going to go back and work on those feelings, and it doesn't have anything to do with you or the other person, right? Seeing that too, right? That it's triggering something in you, but it's not really about them, right? Because it's rare that your partner is like, hey, I want to fuck this person, and they're like a dangerous person. You're like, no, I've heard they don't practice safer sex. I've heard they're going to go talk about you on the internet. You know what I mean? Like that's not a thing for most people, right? So it's not about that person.
No.
Right.
And usually your partner, at least in our experience, our partners usually choose somebody that is an incredible person. and that's like awesome and exciting, but it's not something might be triggering in yourself, and it's not about that.
Yeah, it's not about that person.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important lesson. I just also think, I had tremendous amount of shame and guilt having been this public person who's associated as an expert on non-monogamy, and then feeling like I failed and feeling like I couldn't tell anyone because people have certain expectations of me. Mm-hmm. So I feel like also cutting myself some slack where I didn't before.
Yeah.
Where I felt like I had to be perfect, and that piece was a big wake up call for me to just ease off on my expectations and give myself a break.
Well, and at the end of the day, right, you're a human. So I think
I am.
I think the one thing that I was curious too is, have you seen the fact that you are sort of an icon and a figure in this space? Does it affect your relationships?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you ever come to a relationship since you became well known where they didn't know who you were and you just wanted to be like, I'm just gonna...
Yes. So my relationship with my boy was that way. I was a guest speaker on a college campus, and all of his friends knew who I was, and they were all sort of buzzing about it. And he's like, "What now? Who now? What?" So that was refreshing and nice
because he just knew you as you, as
me as me. Yeah, but it is rarer and rarer for people to not know who I am, and so there is. I feel like there's an expectation. There are star fuckers out there. I feel like I have to I feel like if someone says, like, I really appreciate your work and your book changed my life, like, that's one thing. But if someone's, like, fanning all over me, that's, like, a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
And also, you know, the expectation, right? The expectation that I'm going to be an expert at this and that I'm going to also be some sort of sexual dynamo at all times, right? Because that's what I'm known for.
Me too. just not as widely.
You're working your way up there.
And, you know, sometimes you have your off days or sometimes you're like tired and you're like, oh, okay, wait, I got to take a break. So, yeah. So, and I definitely feel like it's affected my relationships on multiple levels. I do feel like for my primaries, it's very hard to be Mr. Tristan Taormino.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they most definitely are.
Right.
Even if they have the biggest, strongest presence and personality in the world, there's still this sense of people are like crowded around me. And so I feel like that's been an issue for me, no matter who the personality of the person is.
Yeah.
Expectations.
And real quick, I'm going to take a minute there to say we were not intending to fulfill that destiny of interviewing you and not including Mr. Tristan Taormino in this conversation. He was originally planned to be here. He was feeling like he needed some extra sleep.
Yeah.
So we're going to get him later.
I'm going to get him later.
On his own. And then he gets to be himself without you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because he's his own person and you're your own person. So we're excited to have both of you.
Yes. So yeah, I think it can't not affect your your relationships. It does.
Right.
And there's a certain amount of attention that is divided, right? I feel like when I'm here, I'm this special guest and I'm teaching, I'm doing my podcast, I'm a service top, and I'm also deeply embedded in the community, right? I'm out and about. Mm-hmm. And that's part of it that's part of it is like you can hang out with me like a regular person. You can have breakfast with me. You can, you know what I mean? Like you can see me in all my like really tired glory, especially right now with my baseball hat, which I never wear.
By the end of the week, Friday's a little rough.
Friday's like, everyone's looking a little rough. So there's also a sense that like I'm at this event. I mean, obviously we could go do something on our own, but at this event, my attention is split.
Right.
My attention is split because people want to talk to me. I want to meet them. There are people here who came to meet me, and I want to give them time. And so there can be a sense that like, what about me? Like, where's my attention?
Yeah.
And that's hard.
And I would say that, and I know it probably happens on a grander scale for you, but that happens to regular old couples as well. Like you'll start having a crush on someone, and then for a day you're like kind of in pursue mode, and your partner's like, hey, yo, I'm over here.
Yeah.
And you're going, no.
Yeah.
I love you. And then you're looking the other direction. And so those types of things you get to experience them on like the magnified level, I think.
Right. And also, I felt like last year when we came here, we were very much like a pair, and we would decide like we're into both people in the couple and we're going to hook up with them. And
swingers. You are swingers.
And we did everything together. Yeah. And this year, I've noticed that our desires have like veered off. So I've said like, hey, you know what I'm like really interested in? So-and-so. And he'd be like, not really. Don't want to show up and like half-ass it. You know what I mean? Like, right? Yeah. So there's been an interesting negotiation that we're not on the same page about people. And so the people that he seems most drawn to and the people I seem most drawn to are not the same. And then trying to sort of negotiate that. Like wanting to have this like togetherness, like team thing and share experiences, but also being like, I don't know that I'm into that. Like I could watch that, but I don't think I want to be in that foursome, right? That's just not my jam. So that's been an interesting thing to navigate, which was different from last year. Last year we were like solidly like, we're in this together. Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of that saying yes before it's a yes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So. Being able to say like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't feel it.
Yeah. Well, it's also fun to hear that you are making space and time for your own pleasure that's not a performance.
Yeah, that's not workshops, podcasts, that type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And there are just so many great people here. It feels a little overwhelming.
It does.
It needs to be like a 25-day event so you can meet everybody. But
I think we would all die.
First of all, my pussy can't take that. Like, for sure, it's like 7 days, and it's like, could you please give me a week vacation? So I would have to be like a week on, a week off.
I've found sitting in the cold pool for like an hour or two a day really helps
Oh, I never go in the pool. It's just like not my...
We just have to put the lower half
Yeah,
in.
you just have to put the lower half in.
Yeah.
Okay, good point. Yeah, because the heat doesn't help.
No,
anyway,
the cold helps.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I feel like that's been an interesting change for us to navigate, which is like playing separately, even though we're in the same place, right?
Yeah.
And just being attracted to different people.
Yeah.
Right?
And that takes some negotiations, too.
It does.
And
it does.
Well, but and the harder part, you guys seem to have negotiated your ability to pair off if needed. You also have to find other people who are willing to accept that and do it themselves. It's not just you guys, so that makes it even harder.
Right.
Because some people will not pair off.
I know, they're invested. They won't pair off.
Right.
Yes.
So even
and
if you're
their
ready for
jam.
it.
Right, exactly. That's the way they've negotiated in their relationship. So
absolutely,
you have to make sure what your desires are and your partner's desires are meshes with what the desires of the other people.
Yeah.
Which can take a lot of it all comes down to communication.
Absolutely.
Which is being introverts is always difficult for us, but we know how important it is, so we push ourselves to do it, and we're so happy when we do it.
Yeah.
But it is like, especially for me, it's really hard to go up and just be 100% honest with someone. But when I do it, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I also feel like this time around, there's been a couple that I'm interested in, and I've let them know very clearly. Very clearly. And they're definitely shyer, more introverted, just different communication style than me. And so at some point, I realized, okay, I've given them the hard sell.
Yeah.
They know where I live.
Yeah.
If they want to, you know what I mean? If they want to do it. But I need to let go of this particular thing because there are a lot of other people, and I've pursued you, I've made it known, and now I need to stop.
Yeah.
It's not easy though.
No, because you really want to, But
Maybe if I just remind them.
I had a revelation last night. I was just like, you know what? Like if someone said, oh, where's so-and-so? And weren't you guys going to maybe meet up and blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but I'm kind of done chasing. I'm kind of done chasing. I like the pursuit and I like the chase and I like being assertive. And then it's like, but I'm not going to beg you to fuck me.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Who wants to be pity fucked?
No, right. It's like, I'm not going to literally hit you over the head and drag you. If whatever your ambivalence is, which may or may not have to do with me, right?
Right.
I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. Hard lessons to learn here in paradise, but necessary.
Yeah, no, and it's fun to hear them from somebody else who we struggle with the same things, right?
Yes, exactly. I just told him last night that this week has been amazing, but it's also pushed boundaries and pushed communication, and I've learned a lot, I think, and that's part of what this week is all about,
right?
As well,
right? And unexpected learning, just things you don't expect,
right?
What was something that happened that you had not expected this week?
I think the veering off of our desires.
Yeah.
I felt like we were just 100% on the same page last year. We went to speed meet and greet. It was like after 2 minutes, we would just look at each other and be like, maybe, no. And this year, we just have, this year there's people here who I hooked up with last time, who I want to hook up with again. And it's like, no, okay. So the divergence and being able to make that okay, right?
Yeah.
That we're sharing this experience together, but there are some experiences where we may kind of go off and do our own thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Which we didn't do last year. So it's a new dynamic.
Yeah. That's super cool. I mean, it's really awesome that, like Finn said, you have to navigate these things, and you are having similar navigations than we are.
Yeah.
And it's exciting that we're not the only one.
No, right?
So not to continue the theme of forcing you to admit all your mistakes and faults in life, but
Because I've admitted most of them now. Yeah.
one of our favorite things to ask people, because it helps everyone realize that we all make goofy mistakes, is like a blooper. It doesn't have to be this week, but like a blooper from a swinging or any type of exchange. It doesn't have to be sexual, but like just where
Funny
things just went hilariously wrong.
Ooh, hilariously wrong. Hilariously wrong.
It has to be hilarious,
Oh my gosh, has to be hilarious?
or just slightly funny is acceptable. That's I hang out in the slightly funny region of life most
Oh
of
my
the time.
God. Hilarious.
Life's not fun if you can't laugh.
I've had like a lot of hilarious like sex, bloopers and stuff, right? But I'm trying to think of like a hilarious sex thing. I'm even just trying to go through all my
You can pick like 2 or 3.
I know. I mean, where it's like gone off the rails. I mean, it almost always goes in a direction that you don't expect, right? First of all.
Right.
So that's one thing. Well, I do think that I had a really bad etiquette, bad best practices in a situation last year where I was in a 6-some and hadn't yet played with any of the people. And one of the guys got undressed and his dick is huge, right? Like fucking, like you're like double take, And I was like, oh my God. Like, without like, I said it and it came like right out my mouth, right? I didn't like pause or anything. I was like, oh my God, that's huge. And then I realized there was another cis guy in the room and that could have really thrown him.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know that like fragile masculinity, I know like your egos.
Why are you pointing at me?
I know that your egos are delicate, and it was just like I could have thought it and not said it. I could have whispered in his ear.
Yeah.
Like I said it out loud, and I was like, dude, why did you just do that? Like that, you know what I mean? It would just be like if someone said, I don't know, there's an exchange there that someone could have said something about a woman, and I would just be like I love big boobs or something, and I'd be like, right? So it was just bad form. I was like, Tristan, why did you say that? You know what I mean?
Because it just came out.
It just came in my mouth. It didn't come in my mouth. It came out of my mouth. And I was like, that was bad form. Like, you need to be more thoughtful.
Yeah.
So I do remember that from last year. What else? Like hysterical, weird. Well, okay, this is just a funny story, which is that when I was in the quad, we all traveled to Canada together because one of the people was Canadian and was actually in the U.S. like with an expired green card, right? So first of all, when you go across the border, you always have like, you need to be calm and you need to not look like you're doing something illegal and all this stuff. But the fact that there's 3 American passports and 1 Canadian passport, throws things off, right? And so we had a whole story. Like we know exactly where we're going. We know how long we're staying. Like we lined it up. We rehearsed it. We lined it up. We rehearsed it. We lined it up, right? So we get there. They start questioning us. And we're like, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba 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 ba. And then this guy goes, how do you all know each other? And everyone froze.
Oh.
And I was like, we're friends. But they all like freaked out in that moment. Like we hadn't rehearsed it and we weren't friends, but it's like border cross. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to tell him everything.
No.
Right.
How do you know each other? And everyone just went,
Well, we just had sex.
I mean, it's like we're friends.
There are different levels of friendships.
Yeah, it's just like I can't believe everyone freaked out about it because I was like, we really don't have to reveal this part of our thing.
No. Friendships are just fine.
We got in fine.
You got in?
And we got back too. Back was even more scary, but we got back in.
Well, I'm curious now, like talking about your large penis viewing session, that like how do you navigate those? Because maybe you do see somebody and you're like, oh, I love your breasts, or I love this about you. And if somebody who doesn't have that same feature and the same form overhears it, like you're always at risk of offending somebody, right?
Right. I think it was I think it's a couple things. I think that like in our culture, penis size continues to be hammered as the most important quality. That is your sexual,
prowess, right?
Prowess. Like it's all revolves around the big dick. And even if you're super enlightened and progressive, there's all this programming in your head, right? Yeah. And also if you have like if you feel like you have a small dick, forget about averages and all this stuff, but if you feel insecure about your dick size and then someone like sort of points out someone else's dick size, I just feel like it's a number one button pusher for cis guys.
Yeah.
And so I said at the very beginning, it was bad form. Obviously, everyone's got to be responsible for their own like sense of security, right? Like I can say I love your boobs, and it doesn't mean I don't love your boobs, right?
Right.
I just thought at that moment it was badly constructed.
Yeah. I think that's fair too.
Yeah.
If I said something like that, I would feel similarly.
Yeah, like
come on,
Tristan, come on.
That's fun.
Outside of these two desire trips, are you and your partner non-monogamous at home?
Yes. For a while, I had a girlfriend, which that has ended. My partner's really busy work-wise right now, so it's a kind of a situation where he's like, yeah, I would love to do all X, Y, and Z, and yet I'm kind of wrapped up in this other thing right now. And then I've got some, like, flirtations in the works, like with question marks. Like, is that gonna be a thing? So there's two things kind of at the beginning.
Okay.
That I don't know where they're going. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. It's like, what might that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you experienced, I guess, in any non-monogamous, have you ever experienced a situation or anything remotely comparable to This Week at Desire?
The only thing remotely comparable for me is the event that I did for 10 years at the campground.
Okay.
Because it was immersive. The staff there was like a staff of like 5 people.
Yeah.
Right. We took on a lot of the staffing duties and then you could get in for free. And so it was like a kitchen staff and that was it. So it was really only us.
Yeah.
And people they could make their wildest fantasies come true. It was an unbelievable, incredible experience. The accommodations sucked.
Okay. It was a campground.
The accommodations totally sucked. And every year they'd be like, oh, we're going to fix that cabin up. And then they wouldn't. So here, there's just a level of comfort here.
Yes.
The food is better. There's air conditioning. Like, the beach is right here. There's a pool. It's really nice. Like, so I feel like psychologically there was a similar kind of like people open, people exploring, people pushing their boundaries, people trying new things, exciting sort of transformations and light bulbs, right?
Yeah.
All of that happening, but not comfortable. Not physically, I'm a Taurus, not physically comfortable.
Right. Which we've talked about how cool it would be to have something that's a little more accessible to
Yes.
people.
Oh, 100%.
But trying to find the right place and everything, but like...
It's as someone who produced events for a decade, it's really fucking hard. It's really hard. And, first of all, it's hard to get a hotel to even do a thing like this. Yeah. But then when you do get a hotel, the truth is, like, you're in the lobby with regular people and you have to get in the elevator. And so it's not an immersive experience. This is an immersive experience.
Yeah.
Like I've always said, like at this event I used to do, like if you want to be a puppy for 5 days, we'll get a bowl for you. We'll feed you you can sleep in a dog bed. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
You never have to break that role, right? You don't. And that is a different experience than if you have to like navigate between two worlds at a hotel event.
Switch on and off.
It just feels, it's hard. It's a certain kind of navigation. It kind of takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
What time is it?
No idea.
12:30. So we can maybe wrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, we'll say goodbye.
Okay.
Should we pretend to say goodbye?
Sure. You want to say goodbye?
So I guess before we let you get back to paradise, is there any final thing that you would like to share or maybe plug some of the names of the resources that you provided or other resources besides yours that you have found to be valuable?
Yeah, so my website is puckerup.com. I also have openingup.net. My show is Sex Out Loud, and you can find where to listen and all that stuff at sexoutloudradio.com. I'm Tristan Taormino across all social media platforms. I do my own social media. I guess I do want to say that this is entirely a unique place, right? You said, like, have you approached something similar, right? Yes, but this is a one-of-a-kind thing. I mean, I go to events for a living. Right. Around the world. That's like what I do. Mm-hmm. And so I have seen, every possible format, structure, community, all the things, venue. And it's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's fucking unbelievable what we have here, what's been created, what's been co-created. The swing set sort of gathered everyone round, but then we're all co-creating it in the moment.
Yeah, anyone who's here
is co-creating it. And so it does feel magical in a way that's almost hard to describe to people who haven't been here. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's unlike anything else I've ever experienced.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear too, like, just because you've been to so many different types of events that we could never have that. We don't have those comparisons though. So
right.
We won't spend our money on them. We'll just come here then.
Right, exactly. Maybe we found the right one right away.
Yeah, I mean, you could have lucked into it.
Yeah.
I went to all the bad ones, so you don't have to.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And thank you for being very honest with us and sharing things with us that were pre-memoir teasers and everything. So we're very honored to have you and for the time to sit down and thank you.
Thank you for making the time.
Absolutely.
And we're so excited to just have the opportunity to get to know you a little better.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Okay.
I think we did it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Well.
I want to go back to Mexico.
I think we should go back to Mexico. Maybe we should just move there.
Yeah, although I don't know if it'd be the same if we just moved
it'd be
there.
the same.
It wouldn't be as special.
It'd be special.
Anyway.
So, thank you again to Tristan for everything. She's amazing. Her books are amazing. Everything she does is pretty much amazing. So,
we can't thank her enough for sharing everything she did with us. It was incredible.
Go check out all of her stuff and look forward to an interview in the future with her boy, as you will. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, settle in for a long winter's nap, and then you will hear us in 1 week on January the 2nd.
Yes.
We have a cray-cray interview. Well, it's actually just a regular interview.
It's a regular interview, but with a couple that is amazing.
Yeah, it's actually, all of our interviews are fun. This one, we were like...
It just went in places we weren't sure.
Yeah.
Like, it surprised us around every turn.
So come back. You're going to listen. You're going to love it. And we'll see you in 2019. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. One more thing. If you didn't, yesterday, the 25th of December, we had a special episode.
Yeah, how could we have forgotten that?
With the Bed Hoppers.
Woohoo! It was amazing too.
Yeah, so go listen to that on their channel. We tell lots of stories and have a hoot and holler and time.
Yeah, we divulge a lot more about ourselves than we do on this podcast. At least some funny stories.
Yeah, so go listen to that, and we will see you in 1 week.
2019, here we come.